Welcome to Antman, CRAMMED. With Quantumania out, let's take a look back at the 2015 adventure with Paul Rudd's introduction to the MCU. And make sure you've also watched the Loki Ultimate Recap, because if Antman brings us the Quantum Realm, Loki might just have bought us Kang. Let's go! In 1989, genius inventor Hank Pym was working alongside Stark Sr. and Agent Carter as part of S.H.I.E.L.D., but those sly dogs had been trying to steal his research. Bad move, by the way, because now the Pym particle formula won't be going near that lot ever again. Well, it looks like the modern-day Pym Industries is going strong, despite Hank's retirement, in the hands of his protege Darren Cross and his own daughter Hope, because they're putting on a tech demonstration for some possible buyers. As it turns out, Cross has started putting his own name on Hank's buried research regarding the formula for shrinking the distance between atoms for the creation of full-strength tiny soldiers. He's designed the YellowJacket suit and a PowerPoint presentation that sells it as the ultimate step in future espionage and warfare. He's also not bothered about who actually buys it, but board member Frank does have a conscience about the tech falling into the wrong hands, leading to a threatening OCP bathroom break that goops any further pushback before Darren goes out to dinner, where he slags off Hope's dad to her own face and toasts to his own success, assuming that she's totally on his side thanks to a strained family relationship. Meanwhile, Scott Lang says goodbye to his prison friends because he's served his time and picked up by his mate Luis to start a fresh life on the straight and narrow, which turns out to be working with the fresh flavors of Baskin-Robbins. But his manager finds out about that 3-year stint and fires him despite the low-key popcorn classic respect. He drops in on his daughter's birthday party to see the most important person in his life, and to rub his ex-wife Maggie and her new cop fiancé Paxton the wrong way. But the short of it is he'll do what it takes to be there for his little girl, and step one is affording a little child support. Well, because he's got a kind of Robin Hood reputation for ripping off rich scumbags who've defrauded others, Luis's burglary crew are happy to work with Scott, and they follow some insane word of mouth that turns out to be a tip on a rich old man with a big safe at his house that must mean something good. So it's an organised heist where the crew take care of the phone lines, while Lang uses his engineering degree and slick cat burglar skills for an easy entrance. But that old school door seems to have some new school tech, causing him to improvise a fingerprint lift on the fly before settling in for some more traditional cracking of the safe itself. However, other than some old bike suit, there's nothing in there to take. But Lang checks it out to realise it's working with some unusual dated tech, and pops it on to discover it gives him the ability to shrink to the size of an ant, turning his bathtub into a dangerous deluge scenario, while a voice on comms tells him it's a trial by fire. He's got the super condensed toughness of a shrunken human, but the everyday activities of things like a house party or a lady with a vacuum turn out to be wild challenges of survival. Look at that rat! The voice on the radio is impressed with how he got on, but Scott has had enough adventure for one day and actually returns the suit back to the house, only to then get caught and arrested. But Hank Pym arrives to act as his lawyer, because he was both the owner of the suit and the guy on voice, having let Scott steal it on purpose as a kind of job interview for something else he's got in mind. So that night, a bunch of ants sneak in the shrunken suit and relay instructions before Scott makes a tiny prison getaway. It turns out, as well as the Pym particle, Hank developed the technology to control ants, meaning that Scott hitches a bumpy ride through San Francisco before passing out from the strange experience, only to wake up to Hope, who's been keeping an eye on him back at the house with a little ant arrest for good behaviour. What Hank needs is someone with the right set of skills to break into his own former company and steal the YellowJacket and its data before it gets used to topple world governments. And he's not going to call the Avengers for help because he won't let a Stark anywhere near his tech and its wider possibilities, especially after the fiasco that was Age of Ultron. So it's pretty much a second act training montage where Scott builds up his relationship with the local ant life, which is kind of adorable right up until it isn't, dubbing his main flying friend Anthony, and mastering the shrinking and expanding tech. Without the suit's regulator, the user runs the risk of going subatomically small, which would make them enter the quantum realm and shrink for all eternity. So Scott keeps any more modifications to a minimum, while Hope lets off some steam by making sure he's able to fight appropriately when he has the size and force of a bullet. She's clearly super capable herself, but Hank won't let her near the suit, and instead has her keeping an eye on Darren. This, along with not being told the truth about the death of her mother, is causing a problem between the father-daughter pair, and so Scott takes a little time out with Hope to relate with his own daughter relationship that helps her warm up to him and become the point of focus he needed to master the ant control. And with this success, Pym also opens up to Hope to reveal that he worked alongside her mother in the late 60s as the Antman and the Wasp, saving America from a Russian nuclear strike when she went subatomic to pass through the missile's plating and destroy it from within. A certain one-way trip she didn't hesitate on taking in order to save lives. And so the final test of training is a stealth air incursion into an old Stark warehouse to steal back some necessary Pym tech, only to discover that warehouse is in fact the new Avengers base, which is being guarded by the Falcon. And despite actually being a big fan, Scott has to fight his way past Sam Wilson in a fairly even battle of hard shrinking combat and fly-swatting gunplay to slip past the actual Avenger and then bust his way back out after getting inside the Falcon's flight suit to cause some havoc, which Sam quietly hopes nobody tells the captain about. Nice work! And it's almost time to go, but Darren is here, having just invited himself in, because after several failed sheep splats, he's finally managed to shrink organic material as well as the hardware, and wants Pym to be there at the big demonstration for the buyers, despite some big rejected son vibes for being pushed away by his former mentor. Turns out he's also beefed up the security for the big day, so this means they need to expand the team, who are all psyched to be there despite the earlier robbery. Finally knowing what happened to her mother seems to have lifted a cloud from Hope, who's getting on well with Scott, and he goes to visit his daughter Cassie incognito to remind himself what all of this is really for. It's the big night, and Louis poses as security to lower the water pressure inside the building for Scott's ant raft infiltration, which is a swarming success, helping distract the interior guards for the knockout to free up Hope to install that tech to get access to the YellowJacket, only to run into Darren, who welcomes his guests for the show. Ant-Man wipes the data from the servers and sets bombs on the yellow particle before his crew hack the laser security grid just before they get arrested by Paxton. But it's a trap! Scott Lang is sealed in exactly where Cross wants him, so that he has the only rival suit to his YellowJacket before he sells it to Hydra, having overheard their plans when he visited the house the other night in order to originally kill Dr. Pym. Ant-Man breaks free just in time to stop an execution and beat the hell out of the Hydra reps, but Hank still ends up injured before Hope uses her ant control to jam Darren's gun, in turn saving Scott. The full-size people get sealed into the vault, but Ant-Man chases out after Darren thanks to his small combat training and suffers under some epically tiny destruction in the Center for Kids Who Can't Read Good, managing to reach Cross's escape chopper before the madman kills Anthony. And although sealed in, Pym's keychain is in fact a real-life shrunken tank that busts them a safe exit before the whole building blows up, Explodo shrinking the yellow particle tech into nothing and ruining Darren's career. So he just goes full madman and suits up, with absolutely no care for collateral damage as he tries to blast Scott, leading to a tiny briefcase freefall fight before crashing a pool party and resulting in Scott just batting the YellowJacket into a bug zapper for a little electroshock therapy before Officer Paxton catches up to arrest him with a little of his own. But the surviving YellowJacket has broken into his daughter's home to lure out Ant-Man and finish the fight. Scott's got those resizing discs, but the YellowJacket is equipped for war, laser beaming the toy train set and the ant army as Scott tries to close in. Ooh, watch out! Oh yeah, never mind. So whilst utterly wrecking an 8-year-old's bedroom, with some collateral embiggening scaring the absolute Jesus out of everybody else, the guys pummel each other into some close combat. But the YellowJacket with its armoured plating can't be stopped, and although defenceless, Paxton puts himself between Cassie and the madman, so Scott has to do the one thing he knows not to, and shrinks down subatomically to pass through the molecules of the titanium suit and destroy its own regulator, resulting in a rather crunchy finish for Darren and saving his daughter, but ultimately shrinking him down into into a quantum reality where all concepts of time and space become irrelevant. That's going to be important later. And so Scott is lost in the endless non-space, his suit broken. But he's still got one more charge on those embiggening discs, and uses it to prove he's a grower, not a shower, by returning back from the edge of annihilation into macro space, and much to the relief of his daughter. Oh my god. And so they made it, with Scott being the first person to ever make it into the quantum realm and get back out again. Hank understandably has a lot of questions. It looks like Hope and Scott have hooked up, and she finally gets her hands on a suit of her own. And during visitation time over a family dinner, Paxton proves he's actually an alright guy, having smoothed over Scott's earlier escape from jail so that he can catch up on what he's missed with his daughter, who's now keeping that giant ant as a pet. And thanks to some more word of mouth and impressing the Falcon, there might just be another job for him, helping out the Avengers in some kind of civil war. So thanks a lot for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed having Ant-Man crammed inside of you. These are full-on recaps that take ages to make, so I just want to say a great big thank you to anyone who's liked, commented, or subscribed. Seriously, make sure you've checked out the Loki recap before Quantumania, and I'll see you next time. Take care.